Hi everyone, it has been a while since I last made my video on this brother knit. Jules sent me a scanned copy of the manual for this knitting machine, so thank you very much. And now I will be able to make a simple tutorial on how to at least do the stocking knitting. Now to set up the machine, you just have to take out all these parts and accessories. Just remove them from the bed. Okay, this is accessory box with the weight and then the clamp. We're gonna need that. Okay, extra weight, spare needles. Okay, and then these I'm not going to remove them. I'm just going to leave them there. I will set up the row counter as well. So now before you do anything, you have to first lift the knitting bed up by putting your fingers under the bed. I'm going to do lift and move it forward. Now when it's done, it should be sitting in this position. It's normal for your bed to tilt up a little bit in the front, which is actually to your advantage when it makes it easier for you to knit, to see your knitting piece. And now this carriage is supposed to be there already. Okay, then before I do anything, I'm going to want to clamp down the knitting machine onto the table. Okay, now you have your knitting machine clamped onto the table. It won't move anymore. And you see, actually, if you look at the table, it's the long skinny one. And this machine has been opened up, and actually this skinny table is wide enough to accommodate an entire knitting machine, including the case. That shows you how small the machine actually is. Now the next thing you need to do, pick up the handle. Okay, and then you put your handle on top and just screw it on. Alright. This is just your yarn rod. Okay, this is where your yarn goes through. And the manual I saw online, that Jules sent me, I couldn't really see really clear. I'm not quite sure why there are 3 of these loops. And you can actually just thread a piece of yarn through here. And I intend to kind of wrap around to increase a little bit of tension, so the yarn won't be popping out easily. Just kind of play it until I feel comfortable. Maybe you should do the same thing. So I'm going to put the yarn rod right here. Okay, like so. Okay, this is the tip of the yarn rod. Okay, this is the bottom. Okay, then I'm going to take out the row counter. Okay, you don't have to unscrew the whole thing, but I did. Because if you do, make sure you put the thumb screw back on so you won't lose it. Okay, here's the row counter. Okay, this is where you put your row counter. Over here. Okay, you see the cutout right there? Okay, you slide it in. And okay, now it doesn't move. That's nice. So in order to activate the tripper, you push this little piece of the little round rod up like that. So each time when you go over, you trigger the row counter to start moving. There's a dial on the back. Okay, you can turn it back to 0. It doesn't turn the other way around. So now the bed is up, the carriage is on. Okay, yarn rod is set up, and then also the row counter. Now I can go ahead, open the extension bed, and there's one also on the other side. Okay. Now the bed extension is for you to rest your carriage on, because if you want to use the last couple of needles on the knitting machine, you need to be able to move your carriage all the way past the last few needles. This is where the extension is for, that you can sit it there. When you make a larger piece, and you will need to have your extensions opened up. Okay, this is how you set up your knitting machine. Now there are a few things I'll be using today. And I'm not going to use all the tools and accessories, but I will be using a few of them. I'm going to show you what they are. Definitely I will use these claw weights, okay, to increase, to weight down the piece when I knit. But if not, you know, there are chances then you will have drop stitches or your piece actually will pop out. And also I'm going to use the cast-on comb, the small one. Now there are two pieces of cast-on comb. There are two combs. With this knitting machine, I have this small piece, okay? This is a short one for knitting a small piece, and then you have this huge one underneath, okay, this long one. So this is the second one, but this is the one I'm going to use today. Okay, so make sure you put the thumb screw back on so you won't lose it. Okay. To opening the latch of the needles, I have this. This is a cut-up credit card. Actually, this is very effective to open up the latches of the needles, and I'll show you how to use that. I'll be using a 1-2, okay, transfer tools, and I'll be using a 1-1 pushers for this for the demonstration today. I'm going to be using cone yarns today. You don't need to use cone yarn on this knitting machine, but I just find this is easier, and that's what I have at home. And if you don't have the cone yarn, I strongly recommend you buy like a yarn winder to wind your yarn into a ball that will help the flow of the feeding of the yarn. So I have two sizes of cone yarn. I have the thicker one and I have the thinner one. The thicker one, you will need to use a bigger tension setting, and then this one I'll use a moderate tension setting. Okay, this is like super fine yarn. This fine yarn I'll use maybe 10 to 15, and then what I'm using today I'll use it between 15 and 20. Okay, anything bigger that will go up to 25 to 30, and maybe the large cone right there, the pale blue one. So I will have to use okay, the tension between 25 and 30. Your knitting machine may or may not look like this, okay, in the front with the, you see the bracket right here. Actually we call them single plates. The purpose of these single plates is to hold the piece in place when your carriage is traveling left and right. And these are the brushes. They are not only they're used to clean the latches and also to open the latches. And you will notice I have a little piece of yarn tied up the brush right here on the one on the right, because now this is the flaw part of my knitting machine, or one of the flaws. So this brush is like too loose, so it keeps moving too much. So when the carriage is going back and forth, it may miss some of the needle. It may not open some of the latches, which cause a lot of pain for me. So I have tied a piece of yarn there to try to stabilize it. It doesn't work 100% of the time. I would say it works 90% of the time. These two knobs remove the cams underneath this carriage and remove the cam position to kind of push the needles into position for a specific purpose, so the stitch will form uniquely for that particular pattern. So if you have a newer brother knitting machine and they no longer use these dial setup, I think I know why after looking at this, because the new brother knitting machines, they have a push button. The good thing about push button, because once you push the button in, it stays there. Now the problem with these dial setup, I don't know if yours is loose like this. This one is really, really loose. It keeps moving. So when it's set in the first one spot, it moves back. And I have a problem doing even knitting, doing tucking. I don't know if my hand happened to brush against the dial, or it's just because of the force the carriage is going back and forth. And sometimes when I set it on 2 and 2 for doing just stocking knitting, but by the time I go down about 10-15 rows, and this one has changed to 4 or 3. So, and then of course by the time I realized, I already had a mess. So, which is not a very pleasant experience. So this is, I think, this is the reason why they changed it to the push button, because it's more reliable. So hopefully if you have this machine, you have a better luck with the functionality of these cam controls, and they don't move as much as the one I have here. Okay, I think this is another reason why my knitting machine is not working as much as I would like it to. And another possibility is could be the needle retainer. Even it looks pretty good, but I will have to think of something else other than these two and the brush. Okay, so if everything else I try doesn't work, then I will have to look into if it's possible to replace it. And the problem with the retaining bar is that because it's a felt bar, it's not a sponge bar like the most knitting machines, the later models you see in those Japanese knitting machines. So they no longer make those felt strip. I have seen someone online, the lady was using like oxygen tubing, so I'm not sure if that will work, but at the moment I'm gonna try to figure out maybe these two and the brush before I will touch my needle retaining bar, because once I take it out it will be extremely difficult for me to put it back. But because so far it doesn't look really bad, so I'm just gonna leave it, and hopefully I will be able to figure out where the problem is before I go to my last measure to try to replace the retaining bar.